Hi, welcome to another video. In the wake of the release of Now and Then, and McCartney having another successful run of concerts, as well as the re-release of the Red and Blue albums, it seems the Beatles are still in the news. So what I thought I'd do in this video is revisit their breakup. Now, there's nothing new in the breakup of the Beatles, right? But I think if I was to sum it up, that in a nutshell, it was that they grew up. Let me be a bit more specific. They grew up and became more individualistic in their writing and their talents. Of course, so there were other factors too, right? So let's take a look at some of those factors, but bear in mind, these are just my musings. I've done a bit of digging around, as I usually do, and I may well have omitted some of the reasons. If you have a contribution, add it to the comments below, and we can all have a chat about it.
Anyway, she didn't split the Beatles because how could one girl split the Beatles, or one woman? The Beatles were drifting apart on their own. It just sort of happens. Yeah, well, everything's fun off and on. I suppose it could have gone on being fun off and on, or it could have got worse. I don't know. It's just that when you grow up, we don't want to be the crazy gang, which they might know over here, which is British, or the Marx Brothers, which is sort of being dragged on stage playing She Loves You when we've got, asthma and tuberculosis, and when we're 50,
Essence, I think it was time. I always remember the old song Wedding Bells of breaking up that old gang of mine, the army buddies, the band, and you've got to grow up, you've got to get married, you've got to get girlfriends and have babies and things, and you don't do that in a band. So I kind of think if you look at it, we really came full circle. It got a bit bitter towards the end. We had a sort of strange manager guy who came in from New York, and that got bitter. It got a bit of a feud thing going, because we were still good musically. We just maybe a little tense as friends now.
The group had problems long before Yoko came along. Many problems, so people can't understand that, because Beatles was such a big deal. They can't understand why we should actually enjoy splitting up. But there's a time, when people grow up and they leave home or whatever they do, and they go for a change, and it was really time for a change.
Why? No, because we all wanted it, because we'd all grown up a little more, and we weren't prepared to put in the time and energy for each other. But if you look even through the breakup, as soon as the counting came in, we all gave our best, and that always worked. The music was always important.
Right then, the breakup of the Beatles was a complex event, and I found various factors other than growing up that were involved. Let's get into this. There were creative differences because over time, each member of the band began developing different musical interests and artistic visions, which would likely lead to conflicts and disagreements regarding the direction of their music. The Beatles had started as a tight-knit group with a shared vision of creating innovative and groundbreaking music. As they matured as artists, however, their musical preferences diverged. McCartney favoured more melodic and accessible pop songs, while Lennon explored experimental and introspective territory. The allocation of songwriting credits became a contentious issue. In the early years, Lennon and McCartney primarily wrote songs together, sharing credits equally. However, as their individual songwriting styles developed, they wanted more recognition for their individual contributions. This possibly led to disputes over songwriting credits, with each member wanting their fair share of recognition. Each band member had a unique style of arranging and playing their instruments. As their creative differences grew, they started having differing opinions on how the song should be arranged and performed, and this would lead to conflicts that sometimes compromised their own artistic integrity with their work. The Beatles had initially enjoyed a collaborative environment where decisions were made collectively. However, as their creative differences intensified, each member sought greater control and autonomy over their own artistic output, and this desire for independence clashed with the collaborative nature of the band, causing strain within the group dynamics. The band members were also using their music as a means of personal expression. They were going through individual transformations and exploring their own identities, which often led to conflicting creative visions. This clash between personal expression and the collective identity of the band became a source of tension. As the Beatles became global icons, each member began to develop their own individual identity and ego. With fame and adulation, conflicts arose over issues of dominance, recognition, and control. The band members' egos clashed, leading to a possible power struggle and a breakdown in unity. So over time, the band's communication deteriorated. They struggled to effectively communicate their thoughts, feelings, and concerns with one another. This breakdown in communication amplified misunderstandings and created a sense of distance among the members. They started to resent one another due to a variety of reasons, and this resentment stemmed from unequal distribution of songwriting credits, perceived favoritism from the media or fans, and unresolved conflicts, lingering frustrations, and unresolved issues contributed to the strained relationships within the group. As they embarked on individual relationships and marriages, priorities shifted and conflicts of interest arose. The presence of partners like Yoko Ono, who was often blamed for the band's demise, caused further tension and strained relationships within the group. The band members had diverse personalities and lifestyles. John was more politically active and outspoken, while Paul preferred a more mainstream and commercial approach. George was delving into spiritual pursuits, and Ringo focused on acting and his own projects. These varying lifestyles and personalities led to clashes in priorities and values. The sense of camaraderie that once characterized the Beatles started to diminish. The band members felt a growing sense of detachment and a lack of genuine friendship. The joy and enthusiasm they once shared began to fade, making it difficult to sustain a cohesive and collaborative unit. The demanding schedule and constant pressure of being in the limelight took a toll on the band members. Exhaustion and burnout led to irritability, frustration, and decreased patience, which further strained their relationships. The combination of ego clashes, communication breakdown, resentment, differing lifestyles, and unresolved conflicts ultimately contributed to the band's breakup and the decision of each member to pursue their own individual paths. Another factor often cited as the contribution to the breakup was John's relationship with Yoko. Many believe that Yoko's constant presence during recording sessions and rehearsals disrupted the band's dynamic. Yoko's role in the breakup of the Beatles is a subject of much discussion and debate. While it is important to note that she alone can't be solely held responsible for the breakup, her presence and influence certainly contributed to the tension and dynamics within the band. The band members and insiders felt that Yoko's presence and involvement in the band's creative processes interfered with their established dynamics. Some viewed her as an intrusive presence, influencing John's decisions and diverting his attention from the collective goals of the Beatles. John's growing personal and artistic connection with Yoko had a profound impact on his mindset and his priorities. His focus shifted from the band to his relationship with Yoko and his solo career. This shift in allegiance with creative direction created a sense of division within the Beatles. Yoko, therefore, became a scapegoat for the band's breakup in the eyes of the media and some fans. The public perception of her as a disruptive force, and the belief that she was the catalyst for the band's disintegration further strained relationships within the group. Business disputes and financial matters also played a role in the Beatles' breakup. The band's manager, Alan Klein, and disagreements over control of their finances created further tension and mistrust within the group. The Beatles' initial relationship with their manager Brian Epstein had provided stability and guidance for the band. After Brian's death in 1967, disagreements arose regarding the selection of a new manager and the management of their affairs. The band struggled to find a suitable replacement and to agree on the best way to move forward. Now, money has always been a contentious issue in the music industry, and the Beatles were no exception. Disputes over financial matters, such as royalty distribution, publishing rights, and control of their assets, created significant tension within the band. Now, we do know that if their focus is taken away from their creative output, then they're not making music, and music was the primary objective of the Beatles, when they started out. Suddenly they're in a machine, it's a business, and it's not just about making songs, singing songs and performing songs. It's running a business, and this caused tensions. As the Beatles' fame skyrocketed, each member began pursuing individual projects and interests. This shift towards individualism reduced their commitment to the band as a collective unit. As their success and fame grew, each member started to explore and pursue solo projects outside of the band. They sought opportunities to express their individual artistic visions and showcase their personal talents. This shift in personal expression pulled them in different directions, making it challenging to sustain the unity of the band. Over time, some band members began to feel creatively frustrated within the confines of the Beatles. They sought new challenges and outlets for their creative energies. So after years of constant collaboration and the pressure of being one of the world's biggest bands, some members felt a sense of fatigue and a need for personal space. The band members had differing opinions on the direction and management of Apple Corps. Some believed in the company's potential to revolutionize the music industry and promote innovative artistic projects.
What is Apple, John?
It's a company we're setting up which involves records, films, electronics which make records and films work, and what's it called, manufacturing?
Yeah, it does a few things.
You know, the byproducts that end up with Larry Page T-shirts and that.
Some members perceived Apple as being poorly managed, which added to their frustrations. They felt that the company was not living up to its full potential.
A few years back, the Beatles and their advisors made some kind of deal, and when they set up Apple, that 80% of our royalties came into this business, and we can't get it out. It's as simple as that. So anything I earn, which is royalties, is what my main earning, comes into this building which I can't get out. So here we are with a company that eats our money up and takes it all up. And I haven't had any income for 2 or 3 years. Even in the old days, I used to get a check now and then from Northern Songs or somewhere. I haven't seen any income for 2 or 3 years. All I've seen is outcome.
So all in all, a multitude of factors that contributed to the breakup of the Beatles. It was a culmination of creative differences, personal conflicts, business disputes, individual pursuits, exhaustion, external influences, and probably much more. I'm not sure I can add any more to that, to be honest, but no one factor was to blame. When you look at the big picture, you see the inception of a band, a group of teenagers with ambition and drive, initially being told what to do until they grew up and decided they wanted to do what they wanted to do. There has often been talk about the Beatles perhaps not splitting up, but just that they should have pursued their solo interests and maybe occasionally regrouped to make the odd album here and there, to be fair, that kind of did happen, didn't it? They all kind of collaborated on each other's albums, but in reality, it was all played out by 1969, maybe even as early as 67. When you consider the factors I've mentioned, it was inevitable that they would not stay together. They were just too driven and creative as individuals, and I'm not sure that they saw their own futures as Beatles. So there you go, a summary of why did the Beatles break up. Drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will catch you in another video. Thanks for watching and bearing with. Bye for now.